signals that potential contributors look for when choosing open source projects. Our second author, Lily, is also here today. In this study, we are interested in how to increase participation in open source. We want to go from this situation to this situation. There are many benefits in increasing participation. For example, on one hand, many projects need a constant supply of efforts. There are many people who are paid to maintain some open source libraries, but they are not they are not the focus of our study here. There are, however, people who are doing it for fun or to build their resume. By studying how to increase participation, we can give them more opportunities and help projects get more contributors. Also, more participants, more diversity. Prior studies have shown that higher diversity is associated with higher productivity. Participation in open source has a long story of scholarship. Here are some of the steps contributors need to take. First, they need to discover a project. Then they need to find an opportunity to make contribution. It can be submitting an issue or fixing a bug. Then they make their first contribution. And after demonstrating commitment to the project over time, they might be recognized as a core member or a maintainer. There are tons of studies on step 2 and onward, but relatively little is known about the first step, how to choose a good project. This is especially relevant for those who are doing it for fun and face many options. By finding a good project, they can avoid unpleasant situations which might lead to a withdrawal. Social coding platforms such as GitHub provide a rich set of visual cues, we call them signals, that help people make inference about a project. For example, here is a screenshot of a project on GitHub. We can see that there are the number of stars, the number of watchers and forks that signal the popularity of the project. There are also the number of total commits and the date of the latest commit that signal the activity level of the project. These badges in the README signal various aspects of the project. For example, test passing, dependencies up to date. They signal the quality of the project and how responsible are the maintainers. Therefore, we ask, how do people use these signals when choosing an open source project? Let me first give you some highlights. We found a rich set of signals and grouped them into 3 classes. For example, for the quality signals, there is README, contributing guideline, and for community signals, there is implied language, issue templates, and for popularity signals, there is the number of stars and the number of recent commits. You might think, hey, I know some of them are used, but they might not be used in the way you imagined, and there are many nuances in it. To answer the question how signals are used by contributors, we conducted a mixed method study. There are 2 parts. In the first part, the qualitative study, we conducted 15 interviews with GitHub contributors and asked them how do they use signals when choosing projects. In this study, we narrow our scope to NPM projects. We search for contributors who may recently contribute to NPM projects and send them email invitations. During the video interviews, we showed them 5 NPM projects GitHub pages. We asked them to evaluate each one and decide whether they will recommend that to an imaginary character, Jane, who is a recent graduate with a degree in computer science and a first-time contributor on GitHub. We decided not to ask how they chose project in the past because it is impossible to accurately recall past experience. We decided to give them a set of projects because it is unrealistic to have them find a new project within a limited time. We decided to ask them to make recommendations instead of choosing for themselves, so as to separate the personal interest and the project quality. And we decided to provide a persona Jane so as to make this scenario more realistic. Here's a summary of our interviewees' background. We have a very diverse group of interviewees. 2/3 of them are full-time software developers, and 40% of them are female. we have some new contributors and some very experienced ones. From the interviews, we extracted a list of signals and we quantitatively measured them. We used trace data from GitHub and GHTorrent. We arranged data into 2 buckets. We measure our variable in the first half of the year 2018 and see if there were any new contributors join this project in the 3rd quarter of 2018. We built 2 logistic regression models. The outcome variable for the first one is whether there were new contributors join those projects in the 3rd quarter of 2018. And the second one is whether there were first-time GitHub contributors join those projects. Due to the limit of time, I will focus on our first project, but I will highlight some results from the second one concerning first-time GitHub contributors. And for full details, please read our paper. So comparing results from interviews and the models, we found some agreements and discrepancies. So I used the Berlin traffic man here. Green man indicates that the signal are associated with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors, and the red one associates means that the signals are associated with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. Let me go over them in more details now. So we have 3 major classes of signals. The first class is the quality signals. All interviewees mention the importance of the README. Quoting one of them, README is a project's welcome mat. In summary, a good README should be thorough and provide sufficient information about the project. It should have a clean structure, for example, a table of contents. It should provide instructions on how to use the library. It's important to have contact information. It should also include some code quality badges. As one of the README measures in our models, we counted the number of headers in the README to approximate the thoroughness and the structure of the README. Not surprisingly, a more thorough and well-structured README is associated with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. There are several other measures related to README. Please find them in our paper. Another file many interviewees mention is the contributing file, because it suggested that they have some experience handling new contributors. Some of the criteria are, it should be prominent as a section in README or as a file. It should explain some GitHub jargon. For example, not many newcomers may know what is an issue tracker. And it should mention ways to contribute other than code to signal inclusiveness. We model the prominence of having a contributing guideline by checking if they have a section in the README or as a separate file. Surprisingly, we found it associated with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. So we looked deeper into this strange result. In the interviews, some people mentioned it's good to have a contributing guideline, but it can also be an overhead. Here we are showing an interaction term. On the x-axis is the number of commits in the first half of year 2018, and on the y-axis is the magnitude of the estimated coefficient of having a contributing guideline. We are also showing a 0 line here. You can see that for projects with fewer commits, maybe smaller ones or less active ones, having a contributing guideline has negative coefficients, meaning that it's associated with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. You can also see for larger or more active projects, the coefficient flips and it associated with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. We speculate that for large and more active ones, having contributing guideline might help you navigate through the project more easily, whereas for the smaller one, it will be an overhead to the process. The next class of signal is the community signal. One of them is the language used throughout the project. I'm showing 2 examples here. Some of our interviewees clicked into some issues and read the conversation. In this example, the top one, this collaborator is using language such as thanks, could you, signaling friendliness. And some of our female interviewees pointed out that the use of guys assumes single gender, therefore signaling lower inclusiveness. In our models, we use the Stanford NLP tool to measure the impliedness of language used in issue conversations. And not surprisingly, implied language correlates with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. However, this is only significant in our first model. In our second model concerning first-time GitHub contributors, this signal has no effect. We speculate that the first-time GitHub contributor may not know where to look, or they don't know what's the general culture in open source. Another community signal they mentioned is having a template for submitting issues or pull requests, because it signals that there's a good structure for contributing to the project, because it will guide contributors through different pieces of information they need to submit. We include a variable indicating whether there is a template in this project, and not surprisingly, it associates with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. However, again, this is only significant in our first model. In our second model concerning new first-time GitHub contributors, this signal has no effect. We speculate that it's because this signal is hidden. You really need to at least make an attempt to submit an issue to find out whether they have a template. And the third class of signals is the popularity signal. The most prominent of them is the number of stars. It's the first signal you see on the front page of a GitHub project. However, we are surprised that not many interviewees mention this signal, and when they talk about that, they disagree with each other. For example, one mentioned contributing to a popular project will make a huge impact. Another one said a lot of stars but few contributors, those might be signals for an unfriendly project. And another one said, not so popular projects provide you more self-efficacy and allow you to try and learn. In the models, we included the number of stars, and not surprisingly, it is actually a strong signal associated with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. Another popularity signal is the recency of commits. People can easily see how many commits are there in total, but many interviewees mentioned that it is actually the recency of commit one should be looking at, because that signals the projects are currently active. In the model, we counted the number of commits during the first half year of 2018, and found that it correlates with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. Again, it is only significant in our first model. In our first-time GitHub contributor model, this signal has no effect. We speculate that first-time GitHub contributors, they don't know they should be looking at the recency of commit to infer the activity level of the project. To summarize, we found a rich set of signals. By comparing our interviews and logistic regression results, we found that a good README having an issue template and more recent commits correlates with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors, whereas implied language associates with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. Despite that many people place high importance on contributing files, our models show that it associates with lower likelihood of attracting new contributors. Also, despite that only few interviewees care to mention the number of stars, it actually associates with higher likelihood of attracting new contributors. So what can we do? Remember that the number of recent commits and the implied conversation are not significant in the first-time GitHub contributors models. We speculate that it is because these signals are hard to observe. There is no obvious signals that associate with them. Only the more experienced interviewees knew that they should click into some issues to get a sense of the project culture. Therefore, projects that want to attract new contributors could consider adding some badges in their README to signal their friendliness. For example, telling them they're still active, maintained, or they're welcoming pull requests. We could also build a personalized project recommendation system. Remember that the different opinions about the number of stars maybe for first-time contributors, it might be better for them to start with less popular or smaller projects to give them less pressure and maybe more interactions with the owners. To summarize, we wanted to study how to increase participation by studying how to better choose a project. We designed a mixed method study where we first interviewed 15 GitHub contributors, asked them how they use signals to choose projects, and quantitatively test them. Combining the results from the interviews and the models, we found some agreements and discrepancies. And based on our findings, we suggested some signals to be added and some trade-offs one should consider when choosing a project. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Hi, Kutab Gandhi, undergrad from Rice. I've seen an interesting project called Cube Browser, and what was interesting was that they had a tab specifically for pull requests that the maintainers felt were easy for new members to start on. I'm curious if that's something you've seen a lot with the packages you looked at, and like what your opinions are on that kind of like, easy pull request tab.
Yes, there are actually many websites that's doing that. There are some also like first-timer friendly, so they manually curated a set of issues that might be easy enough for first-time contributors. And some projects, they use labels in their issues, and those are good first-time issues. We just want to see people use that more often. And also, my own opinion is that those websites are external to GitHub. So maybe they can integrate that in their own GitHub page, because so that people don't need to go somewhere else to actually collect those information.
Hi, Jeff Eckerson, Stevens Institute of Technology. I'm wondering if you think that there are kind of preferential attachment effects related to, say, recency, and so, would it make sense for them to be making small changes and contributions in order to seed more people contributing, or do you think it's better for those with sites that want to attract more people to just be increasing the overall quality?
Sorry, I don't think I fully understood your question.
So I guess my question is that sometimes people respond in preferential attachment. They just respond because they see that there's activity. And so they're attracted just because of that, not necessarily because of the underlying quality. And I'm wondering if you think that that's happening here.
I don't think I see this scenario, maybe because we didn't look in that from that particular angle. But many of our interviewees, at least, they use a lot of signals, not just the recency of commits. So, for example, they might definitely consider the number of stars if they don't explicitly say that out loud. They must have seen that because that's so prominent. So I don't think they will only contribute because of just the recency, the commits.
I'm James Housen at the University of Texas at Austin. The stars thing intrigues me. So are these people not contributing to projects that they're using in their own code? I guess I don't really understand how stars are used, because my hypothesis, my experience would be that people are going to contribute to packages that they use in their own work life or in their own company.
Right, yes. As I said, those people are not the focus of the study here. We are, when we interview people, we say, this is probably not the projects you've been using. It's for people who aren't using many projects. Like for me, I don't use any open source, but I want to get some open source experience. So that's when they need to use stars to infer like the quality of the project. But if you're using some, maybe you will just contribute to those.
Okay, thank you.